I kindly request everyone to please settle down.
आज we are running late one session, so we'll be quick to the topic. So keeping the interest of time and lunch in mind. So this session is all about, not just about a book, Cloud Chariot. And all of here, people might have heard about Kharavela. Anyone who has not heard about Kharavela? So this book is about Kharavela and written by someone who is not from Odisha. And that is very exciting. And he uses the all available evidence from Hathi Gumpa inscription and his reading of contemporary history of that time and recreates a book which has the potential to become a series or a film, can be adapted to become a documentary or a film. So with that caveat, we'll start to know about the author and the book, why he took that journey. मुंबई में बैठकर पुलिस डिपार्टमेंट में होकर साइबर सिक्योरिटी को देखते हुए खारवेल क्यों याद आए. Over to author Bridges Singh, and you start. Why this book?
First of all, I'm it is eerie and I'm feeling blessed that I'm sitting on the very land where this king ruled. So it's a moment of, great happiness for me. This is my first visit to Odisha. And imagine this, that the king I have written about ruled this very place 2 millennia back. Now, why I wrote about this was, this book was written 10, 12 years back. And it came from a discussion where I was, a friend of mine, he used to head Disney at that time. He was writing a graphic novel for children on ancient Indian history. And when I saw, I said, this looks very anglicized. So all of the references were very Greco-Roman, very Western. And I said that, something is off here. And I got irritated. I told him, don't spoil history for me. So he said, why don't you write then? So I said, if I write, who will publish? I'm a policeman. He said, I will publish it. So this began as a graphic novel. Now, further trouble started that nobody could draw ancient Indian history. That whosoever graphic novel artist I was talking to, they were giving me six-pack people, with metal armor, looking like Greek gods or looking like Thor. And it continued for long. With frustration, I dropped the graphic novel project. But by the time I had studied this king so much, I was very inspired that when we talk about ancient India, we talk about Ashoka, we talk about Gupta Empire, we don't talk about a king who had basically undone Ashoka. Like, he created a kingdom from ashes. He went on to redeem lost glory. He was a patron of arts. He was a military strategist. He was a very good administrator. What a wonderful story. And the more I read about this king, I thought that it is time that we should talk about him and tell it to people.
With the graphic thing, we have Kalinga Art Festival here, you can see there. And we have artists who can do that illustration if you require now.
I will be very happy to.
So, blanket offer from Kalinga Art Festival to have illustrations for your book. I think we have learned a lot about Ashoka and his Kalinga war and his conversion or whatever path to Buddhism and Buddhism spreading to different lands beyond India. Kharavela is not a national figure as such, because you think he should have been. In the discourse of ancient Indian history, we do not find Kharavela as we find Chandragupta, as we find Chanakya, as we find Ashoka. Ashoka becomes the great. So, where do you locate Kharavela and his reign as his ruling? Was he inspired by Chanakya to an extent, and was his strategy and statecraft was kind of mirroring, or perhaps he was as well as innovative to his time? So you're talking about something about Kharavela being innovative at his time, even 2,000 years ago. So what did you find? What was innovation in his reign, on his ruling?
So two parts of the question. First part, you rightly said that why is he not a national figure? And I'm intrigued, why is he not a national figure? And which brings me to the larger question of how Indian history has been written. And I feel that there's a fault in which the way Indian history has been written. Um, Indian history was basically created by the British to prove that we are a subjugated race, to prove what Macaulay said under his, you have to read this very interesting document called Macaulay's Myths on Education, 1935. And Macaulay says that all of the Persian, Sanskrit, and Tamil literature combined is not equivalent to a shelf of, British literature. And with that thought, Macaulay created this breed of Indians. Today, see, we are talking in English, right? And it is because of Macaulay. I can't even talk in my own language. And to write about Kharavela, I am writing in English.
Anyway, I will just interject there. We have Indianized English. We have given them back in English because Gandhi spoke English, Vivekananda spoke in English, Subhash spoke in English.
We gave
So
them
it is
Rishi
no more
Sunak.
their language. It is no more their language. We have taken over.
We gave them Rishi Sunak also.
We have taken over that language. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, English is an Indian language. It is no more only British. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I agree. But,
Go ahead.
but see, the way Indian history was constructed, it was a project. It was a project to prove that Indians are a subjugated race and that we are good for nothing and that we need the British who are discharging this white man's burden, that they are doing ehsan on us,
Yes.
that they need.
Unfortunately, after 75 years of Indian independence, that kind of historiography continues.
It continues, yes. Upfront. And in fact, this book is also an attempt to kind of revolt against that tradition, to talk about our own people in our own voices. Look at India. There is no other civilization with such historical continuity. We are a continuous flowing stream of water, which is not there with anybody. Look at Egyptians, they have lost it. Look at the history of the West, it's just very recent. They were grazing animals when we had empires here. So when I was studying for this book, I went to actually excavations. And so Dhauli excavations there, Shishupalgarh is there. See, Shishupalgarh was a city of 25,000, 30,000 people, which continued for 1,000 years. It had fortifications which were 30 feet high, right? Which had complex system of drainage, which had, water stored inside the fortification. Athens was just 10,000 people. And what we study as if the world, everything was given to us, right from democracy to literacy to coinage was given to us by the West. No, we had 16 democracies even before 600 BCs, and 16 wonderful democracies. Even the names today we use for our officials like Ayukta, Adhyaksha, all of them are from those times with similar functions.
Yeah.
So I believe that there was a historical discontinuity which needed to be addressed. And coming to Kharavela, this is a strange king, and the dynasty does not find mention before this. When Ashoka attacks Kalinga in 261 BC, it's not clear who was ruling here. So probably it was a republic, probably there was a king, but the mention of the king has been kind of by purpose not done by Ashoka in his inscriptions. Now here comes a dynasty, and probably Kharavela was from a dynasty which was from outside Kalinga, and that family had migrated here. You see only 3-4 kings, and what a meteoric rise. You take up a nation which just 100 years back, 1 lakh people have been killed, 1 lakh, 50,000 in those times have
Serious
been,
injuries.
made slaves. From there, you recreate a nation, you recreate an administration, you recreate a military, you do civil works, you're a patron of arts, right? You respect all religions equally. Imagine this, to have a king of this caliber at that time. And it's not that kings were just sons of kings. It needed all of these abilities. Now this man, from 15th year of his age to 24th year of age, as a crown prince, is given probation. He's made to learn arts, he's made to learn science, he's made to learn statecraft. So when he takes over, this man is an able administrator. He's the ideal king. I think he should be ranked in history much better than Ashoka or anybody.
Okay, that's an assessment. Clap for. I think that's an assessment. We'll take that seriously. I think historians, you are not a trained historian, but someone who looks at it as a story at one level, another level as a policeman who also does forensic investigation. You look at data as well, and you look at history, and you look at also missing points. So the kind of linking that you have developed in this book, I think it is a must read for anyone who is interested in ancient India, not just about Kharavela. I think this should be translated into Hindi and Odia as well. And that we can take that charge. Kalinga Literary Festival offers the translation in Hindi and English. And but it is in English, Hindi and Odia as well. So, as you said that Kharavela ranks higher than any other king, given the fact that there was a vanquished community, uttered in shambles in whatever was existing. And Ashoka, after that, there is no history which Ashoka, after adapting to Buddhism, whether he rebuilt. There is no history, nothing to say that, okay, what ravage, what vanquished community were there. There was no rebuild. There was no effort to create what it was. So the resilience of the community that Kharavela creates is extraordinary for that reason. So would you like to say something on that? You getting attracted by Kharavela is perhaps for this reason, that here is a king coming from nowhere after such a horrible war, creates a community that goes back and defeats Magadha. One. And second, as you was telling just before the session started, that he doesn't attack Magadha when there is an external enemy from the Greek coming, and he says, okay, let me fight the Greek first. मैं इंटरनल जो घर का है उसको बाद में देख लेंगे, बाहर वाले को पहले देखते हैं. So this is a pure Kautilian philosophy, that the Aryavarta or Bharatavarsha, the concept that your kings to be coming together. So do you find anything that Chanakya, in whatever way, in the folklore and in perhaps in administration, inspired any way Kharavela?
So,
does your book talk about why he thought that way? Anything?
So if you look at the administration of those times, it was Arthashastra based. Like all of the officials, Arthashastra, it was basically under Magad, and hence all of the administration was absolutely based on Arthashastra. And please read Arthashastra. In these days of, as Navanil was saying, dopamine hits, please read something as serious as Arthashastra. And you'd be amazed at how complex our societies were. Like there are laws on traffic, there are laws on alcohol and prohibition, there are laws on prostitution. It's amazing. So it was an administration based on Arthashastra, and hence I think Chanakya would have been very relevant. But look at this king who at this extreme end of the country has a national consciousness. So when, I think probably it was Menander or I don't know who, a Greek king starts attacking India from the northwest, and at that time Kharavela is ready to attack Magad to, you may call it redemption, you may call it revenge. There was also a part of bringing an idol back. So there was an idol called Kalinga, which was taken away by Ashok. And there was a thought at the time in Kalinga that once that idol has gone, our fortune has gone. That this is the misfortune which has befallen us because Kalinga is not there. And he wanted to take that idol back. He was attacking Magad for that. And at the time, he sees that a Greek king from the northwestern frontier starts coming towards India. And look at a king and his national consciousness. Imagine a king who is going on the greatest expedition in his life, and then he decides, no, I don't want to do this. I want to fight the external enemy first. So he decides that I will first fight the Greeks. And he relinquishes the Magadha campaign. He goes, fights and defeats the Greek. The Greek goes back. He comes back, waits again, and years later goes and attacks Magad, defeats them, and takes the Kalinga back, restores the glory of Kalinga.
Very interesting observation. I think if Kalinga was taken when Ashoka's war happened, so where our community by that time were Jain followers? That is one question. Second, Ashoka taking Buddhism or maybe organized religions or modern concepts, at that time conversion may not have been something as we do today. So he adopts Buddhism, whatever modern history we have read. And when Ashoka attacks, was he a Hindu or a Jain?
See, Chandragupta Maurya was a Jain, Ashoka was a Jain, but see, organized religion today, as we see, was not what it was then. All of these schools were not organized religion. They were just ways of life. Even Hinduism that way was not an organized religion. It's not an organized religion. It's just, a cultural stream. And Jainism, Buddhism, and all these thoughts come from something called the six heretical schools of Indian philosophy. And at the Charvak, you had Buddhism, and you had Kakur Katyan. There were various people who were called as six heretics, and they walked the earth on the same time in 6th century BC. And their philosophies later on, some of became organized religion. But Buddhism, as you see, is not the Buddhism of Buddha. It was different. So it became later Mahayana and Hinayana. And hence,
Why would Ashoka, who purportedly was Jain, and would attack Kalinga and take Kalinga Jina, if Kalinga was Jain kingdom at that point of time? So Kalinga Jina would have been the presiding deity of Kalinga's kingdom. Why would he attack another Jain kingdom? Maybe territorial aggrandizement, but why would take the Jain idol back to Magad? I'm just asking.
yeah, probably Ashoka at that time believed that this idol was very important. This idol was very important for himself
For Magad.
at Magad. And also, it's a way of demoralizing people. That you see, if you want to take away the cultural pride of people, then they become befallen. And hence you see that happened. That
And
once-
several times, just to add to that, Jagannath temple have been attacked several times.
That's what attackers do. But it's a misnomer that Ashoka became non-violent after Kalinga campaign. There were several wars which Ashoka fought after this also. It's not that he relinquished warfare. There was warfare after Kalinga war also. And statecraft and the religious, uh, proclivity of the king are two different things. And they should be two different things. That is what
Chanakya.
modern principles of constitution say.
Yeah.
That statecraft should be different from religion. And I believe that the actions of kings were not motivated by religion. Religion was a secondary part. It was basically something which spiritually guided the king, which basically spiritually guided the people, which kept them together, which gave them culture. However, statecraft was an entirely different thing, which led to warfare, which led to different things. Now, this was a very interesting time where the great grandson of Ashoka, Predat, was killed by his own general Pushyamitra Shunga in front of the army, and Pushyamitra Shunga then becomes the king of Magad.
A coup. That a coup
Yeah,
happens.
it's a coup. And Magad is basically falling apart. And in this turbulent time, when a great kingdom is, receding, there are three large blobs, geopolitical blobs, which get created. There is Pratishtanpura, where Satkarni I is ruling, which is around Maharashtra and Andhra, Kalinga here, and the remaining parts of Magad. So there were three large geopolitical entities which were looking at each other, which were competing with each other, which were even helping each other at times, trading with each other, because some people had access to ports. Kalinga had access to ports. They were trading, they were cooperating, they were competing against each other, and it was a beautiful, part of history, which basically led to larger, forces in history, which created what we have today.
With this complex historical and sometimes controversial at times and sometimes not very clear data and analysis, some people saying something, some people saying something, how did you create a story out of this? What was your source? One, it's not a very simple story because there are competing narratives available. And some inscriptions say something, some inscriptions say something, and they sometimes are contesting each other. So to create a narrative, cohesive narrative, and create a story and from a historic figure and creative retailing. So what was the challenge that you faced? given the historical.
So you should not forget that I'm a policeman, and I do investigations. So I did this historical
So
investigation.
circumstantial evidences were used.
And there's a lot of contradictory evidence. For example, the date line of Kharavela is not still clear. Some people say it's
Second century
Second century.
CE,
Some people say
first century
it's first
CE.
century. But you have to form an opinion. You have to form an opinion based on who is contemporary, what is happening, and I, like a policeman, I pieced all these pieces of evidence together, and then you have to create this like crime scene reconstruction.
Narrative.
I did a narrative reconstruction in my mind and created this story. I got wonderful help from actual excavations. Artha Shastra I read for the structure of administration, and,
And you did speak to archaeologists and
yes, I did. And I took the first 4 lines of the Hathigumpa inscription, and this book is just the result of first 4 lines. And if it is received well, I'll write other parts also.
no, but can you tell us what were there in the four lines for or our audience who may not have idea about Hathigumpa? So what did you find there?
So this inscription is,
In Prakrit.
Pardon?
In Prakrit language and Brahmi script.
Yeah, it's in Prakrit language, in Brahmi script. It has been deciphered, which basically goes on to say that in the first year, the king did this. In the second year, he did this.
13 years.
In these many years, he did this. And it starts with wonderful things, that he starts with, repairing civil works. He starts with repairing canals. He starts with planting trees. He starts with making tanks for people. Then he goes and repairs the ramparts. So look where he's going. He's creating people's capabilities. He's connecting to people, and then he's repairing his defenses. And then almost in the third year, he goes for his first expedition. So this is a king who is very learned in the art of statecraft. He knows what he's doing, and he has grand plans. And look at the grandiosity of his plans, that he even has a national consciousness, that when somebody from outside comes,
The
he
Greeks.
says, no, first this, I'll fight the domestic enemy later. So you find a king which is also building a long-term dynasty. The irony is that this dynasty does not continue later on.
Right.
That dynasty after 3 kings, after his grandson is not seen. I believe that had this house continued, it would have led to a wonderful line like the Satvahans. The Satvahans continue for almost 700 years.
700 years.
And they made Ajanta, Ellora, everything. So you find that it is important to know what was in our past, the capabilities of our past, and how nations were made. And look, aren't we in a similar time where India is again rising? And aren't we like
And repairing things.
and aren't we like the Kalinga of 2100 years back, where we were vanquished, and where we are regaining our lost confidence, and where we are looking at the world. And today there are lessons for India, that how this king, he thought for his people, he worked relentlessly for his people, he thought of nation first, and how he created a nation back from ashes, how he brought pride and redemption to his people.
Right. So coming back to the book, we have 5 more minutes. So coming back to the book, how did you tell this story? Who is your Sutradhar? How did you introduce this person who is going to tell the story about Kharavela's, the then Kharavela's
So
time?
that is the only anachronistic
mystery one to keep.
no, anachronistic thing, because Rudra Varman, the name is something which must have not occurred at the time. All the other names are quite realistic. That I was very careful of researching what existed at the time. Let's say if a poison has been used in the book, then I found out that whether that poison was geographically available at that time or not, or if, let's say, there is a malady of elephants, if elephants are sick in the book, I went to read a book called Elephant Ayurveda by a rishi called Palkapya. So a lot of research has
Gone.
gone into the book.
The question is Sutradhar. How did you find Rudra coming to the picture, and why did you create him?
So in fact, in all my books, the Sutradhar is always Rudra. So in my book Quantum Siege, which is a thriller about terrorism, the Sutradhar is Rudra, and somehow I was stuck with Rudra, and I kept the name Rudra Varman here.
Right.
Now Rudra Varman is the only historical mistake here, because Rudra, the Varmans come much later in history.
Yes.
Maybe 600 years in history. So this is the only anachronistic name here, and please forgive me for that. Rest all is as good history as a history book.
Right. Any passage you would like to read for our audience, or anything you would like to say that was that the reader can take, that is a takeaway for the reader. Either that will be a question. Yeah. After this reading, there will be questions. So anything that you will like to read for our readers,
I
for
can-
our audience, anything, just a
I
few
don't
lines.
I don't have my chashma. I'm almost,
बता दी, मैं पढ़ लेता हूँ आपके लिए.
yeah, probably.
कौन सा वाला?
The first one, let's start from.
Okay. A stranger in Tosali. Tosali is the capital of Kalinga. Halt. Who goes there? Shouted the Prahari, who is the watchman. The alarm rang clear and far in the night air. Archers immediately knocked their arrows and rushed to take positions atop of the gates and turrets. Large torches burnt with hissing sound and shadows danced like possessed spirits in the strong wind. पूरा mystery thriller है. He creates a mystery thriller. Here is a person who is coming, who is the Sutradhar here. And the traveler had arrived quite late at the gates of Tosali, capital of Kalinga Nagari. Was it a deliberate miscalculation? The traveler halted. He was searched for weapons and produced before the commander. He didn't even resist and remained still. So he is the protagonist. So this is becoming much more interesting. Thank you. Questions? Asu.
My name is Bonus Parida, and I am a bureaucrat. And I wanted to ask, at one point of time, you said that possibly Kharavela was not from here, he came from outside. This is the first question. Second is, how come, what really led to your interest in this particular king of this thing? And if you love this place and this civilization so much, is it your first visit, you said? You have a airy feeling that you're coming here? Or have you come here before?
No, I've not come here before.
So you have written this about Kharavela without coming here. You have studied those excavations.
That is what I
and
call the
wonderful. Really, I congratulate you for that.
That is what I call the great disconnect in India.
Yeah.
That today, when you come here, you find, except the inscription and except the caves, you find a great discontinuity. That our past has been erased so much.
Yes.
That if I come here today, except for visiting the caves, I will not find any continuity. You know, when the Ashokan pillars were found, the Britishers assembled everybody. They assembled all the teachers, everybody. Nobody could read Brahmi, Kharoshti, Aramaic. Nobody could read that because we have this thing called the Great Disconnect. That we have totally erased our past and we have disconnected from it. But I'm happy today that I'm sitting in that blessed land where this king ruled.
Okay, the first question. Why do you say that he came from outside, not from Orissa, Kharavela?
So there are historical references which say that the dynasty was Mahameghavan dynasty was from the Chet Raja, the father of